Hey guys, DesolatorMagic here, and it's time to make the best video on this entire channel. This is probably going to exceed hypergeometric distribution, version 1 and 2. This is the secret of how I personally build a deck, and I'm talking start to finish, gonna follow the whole process. So this is probably gonna be a little bit of a long video, but once you watch it, you're going to look at deck building a completely different way, and this looks difficult, but it's really quite easy when you just follow the process. You know, it's kind of casual. I usually do it while I'm watching like Netflix or something. It's not as hard as it looks. Now, the one part I'm not going to cover is how to come up with an idea for a deck, because that you already need at this point where I'm going to start the video. And I kind of made a video about that in the past about, you know, different tiers of power. Like if you think of an idea, okay, it's all death touch. That would be pretty low tier. It's not very good. You might have to do something on top of that to make it better. But then you take like prowess plus boost spells, and then they build on each other, and then it's fast damage, and then cheap creatures. Like, all those are really high tier as far as your ability to win. So once you have an idea, this process will tell you if it's bad, though, if it just isn't going to happen. And I've had it happen, and at that point you just have to abandon the deck. So that's the number one most important thing that I could say at the beginning. Now today we're actually going to build the Mr. Nibbles deck. And no joke, I brought up the actual spreadsheet that I used, so you're going to see how much of a nightmare this was to build, really. Oh, and it also outlines how when people say, well, why don't you swap out this for this, it's better, like how that completely pisses me off and how wrong they are. So where you want to start this little adventure is gatherer.wizards.com. Now, a slight disclaimer here, I absolutely hate this website. It is completely broken and they refuse to fix it, kind of like all of their digital products, but you can kind of trick it into working. So what you want to do is just go straight to advanced. Just don't even use a simple interface. That's for noobs. Don't bother with sort order. This quite literally does absolutely nothing. You could say sort by like rarity, whatever, it won't do it. Love that. So then you want to go like type creature, because we know this is going to be a prowess deck, so we want to see how many creatures have prowess. I want like a full list of every single creature with prowess. Now at this point I haven't even picked the colors. Let's see here. Whoops. Yeah, creature. There we go. And then you hit add. Let's see. Now format, it's going to be standard. I mean, that's just, you know, that's what we're building for. That one's pretty obvious. You hit add. And every time it's an and, that means that both of them have to be true. So if you want, for example, colors, if you put like red and blue, it's literally going to only show red and blue, like the combination. You want to switch it to or, even for the first parameter. That's the one thing that most people get wrong. Now, you know, convert to mana cost, power, toughness, flavor text, you know, all this stuff. The artist, I mean, you can search by anything. Absolutely anything. I love it. So flavor text. Oh, wait, no, that's the flavor text. I'm thinking about the, see, even I don't know how to use this damn website. The rules text. So rules text is basically all the text on the card that isn't somewhere else, like the type or, you know, the title. So I would just put prowess and add. Now you would think it would be under like mechanic or something, but it's not. It's just part of the rules text. And I guess that kind of makes sense. So then we'll just hit search. So we're literally searching for creatures in standard with prowess. And then from there, you're going to want to go convert a mana cost ascending and hit add. There we go. Now here is every single prowess creature that's legal. So, you know, you get Bearer of Overwhelming Truths. And, you know, Voracious Reader, which I believe made the... Oh, no, that didn't make the cut. That's right. Abbot of Carol Keep did, though. So I just go down, and obviously your priority should be the lowest cost. You know, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of great, you know, 5-cost, 6-cost creatures in this list. But what I really want is the cheapest, because prowess is a fast deck. You know, I'm not trying to stall, then, like, get out a bunch of planeswalkers, and who cares if I bring out a 7-cost dragon. You know, that's how some other decks work. So you look down, I mean, Mage Ring Bully, that made the deck. Sanguinary Mage didn't, because it's just a 1/3 with prowess. I mean, it's just not that good. So you might start, you know, kind of narrowing it down, because Storm Chaser Mage here is a 1/3 flying haste. I mean, it's just better, and it's pretty clear to see. But what I usually do is every single one that I think is a possibility, like it doesn't just completely suck or completely have nothing to do with the deck, put it on a spreadsheet. So let's hop over to the spreadsheet for a second. So here we have the spreadsheet. I'll give you a little tour of how this works first. We've got enchantments and artifacts on top, creatures in the middle, and then other on the bottom. I know I probably should have done like instant sorceries, enchantments, artifacts, and pretty much everything else. But, I mean, this is simple enough. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Now, the land is on the bottom, obviously, and I've hidden everything just so you don't, I don't know, read ahead. No spoilers, even though you guys have literally seen the deck list. And then I've got cool stuff like total land percentage, total cards in the deck. Kind of want to know that. Total mana cost, which means absolutely nothing, but the average mana cost of the whole deck is 1.368. Like, that is unbelievably low. Like, that's low even for me, and I like to build quick decks. So the creatures here, you can see we've got a full list. So we got Storm Chaser Mage, Abbot, Mage Ring. You can see those are pretty much in the exact same order that they were online. Niblis of Frost, Bedlam Reveler, Kolagon Stormsinger, Lightning Berserker, Village Messenger, Deranged Well, Brazen Wolves, Mercurial Geist, which actually made the final cut, Tattered Hunter, Niblis of Dusk, aka Mr. Nibbles' twin, and then Aberrant Researcher, which doesn't actually have prowess, but it becomes more powerful based on spells, and there's a lot of spells in the deck, but as you can see, it didn't make the final cut, because here's the count. So this whole column right here is the quantity in the deck, and then the cost is the mana cost. So that's there no matter what. And what I usually do is if I know something's good enough to fit the deck, I'll put it in bold, because it's like a staple of the deck. It's the most important. I cannot remove it from the deck list. Even if I'm not that confident, I'm putting a 4, because that's, everything's a 4. So usually what I do is I'll go down the line and go 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 for everything, unless I think, well, I guess I'll throw this in if I'm out of cards, if there's only like 54 cards in the deck, then I'll put a 0, but I'll still leave it there. And then I put like a basic description of what it does. Like this one, Kolagon Stormsinger is a 1/1 with haste, and this was supposed to be a haste deck. It was supposed to be quick damage, but I ended up not putting it in there because, yeah, it's Megamorph, and when it flips, it grants haste to something else, so I could, flip it, swing, and it turned out that just wasn't enough damage. I mean, it's only 2 damage. I think it was in the air. It's just not that good. So a lot of zeros on here, and you can see there's a lot of creatures. Like if you do 4 of all these, you probably are up to, I don't know, 120 card deck or something, all things considered. So you do have to narrow it down from there. So I ended up with 4 Storm Chasers, 4 Niblis, 3 hair, 3 hair, and that was it. I mean, the rest is all zeros. I mean, Bedlam Reveler is just worse. This is worse. That's worse. This is worse. Even 2/1 Menace, it's still worse because when I boost it, give it a +3, Menace isn't quite good enough, even though it's a double ambush kill. That was actually the last one to come out of the deck, because if I made it like a 5/1 and they were forced to block it twice, they're guaranteed to lose 2 instead of 1. So it's like the perfect ambush. Didn't work on defense. He didn't have haste, and I think, yeah, he cost 2. So he just wasn't that good. Brazen Wolves is pretty good because they automatically get a boost on attack, so then if I were to drop Double Strike on him, he'd already be good. But it just wasn't as good as Prowess, especially like in the air with haste. And triple Prowess right here, basically. You get +3 on attack on an instant or sorcery only, not an aura or an artifact. That's important. So I really wanted to put Mercurial Geist in there, but Prowess is triggered by all non-creature spells, so that's why I kept him in there, and then the whole deck was kind of built around that, where I wasn't going to put in any kind of permanent auras, because there is an aura that grants, or no, actually it was just an enchantment, grants Double Strike to 1 chosen creature every single start of combat. That's insane, but it wouldn't trigger Mercurial, and I think there's one other it didn't work with, because not the whole deck is literally word for word Prowess. So it's really like you can narrow it down once you get the other spells. So now let's go back to the Gatherer and pick out the spells. So we're back at the Gatherer advanced page. I did keep the one parameter of standard, of course. Now we're going to go to type and put an instant. I did take a look at the sorceries, but I pretty much ruled them out. I mean, a lot of them are really, really, really powerful, but it didn't work because if I were to swing with 3 creatures, I need to boost the one that they don't block in order to win the game. So if I boosted it ahead of time, they'll just chump block it, and none of the sorceries had trample for cheap enough. So it just didn't work. And I know sorceries are usually better bang for your buck because you can't ambush people, but Didn't work for this deck. Oh man, my allergies are so bad I shouldn't be recording this right now, but we're gonna power through it. Now, I should have mentioned, when you are looking at the first creature list, or if you're going spell heavy, the first spell list, you're just saying, I don't care about the creatures, I just want to go boost, just nothing but trample, ambush. Then pick out the colors once you've picked out the spells, because the spells are way more important than the creatures. So at the point where I looked at the list of creatures with prowess, it was pretty obvious I needed to go blue-red. So at this point, I've already picked out all the colors, and everybody that's on the spreadsheet, creature-wise, is already in those colors. So I'll put in red. Oh, I forgot. Got to switch it to or. There we go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten any results, and that's annoying. So it's got to be or red or blue. You would think it's like and red or blue, but it just doesn't work that way. So here we go. Now, wait. We've got standard, instant, red, blue, but I'm not going to read all of them. I mean, you know how big standard is right now. So what you want to do is go to the rules text and... Oh boy, I don't even remember the exact phrase I used. I think I just looked at one card as an example. So, I think I put gets plus. I think that's what it was. Yep. Let's see if this works. And that basically is any boost spell. Anything that says target creature gets plus and then a number. And as you can see, there it is, Borrowed Hostility. Target creature gets plus. So what you can do, if you really want, is hit Control F. This works in pretty much any browser. And you can put in the phrase gets plus and then turn on highlighting. And there it is. That'll be where in the giant block of text it actually shows. So you can see the first two actually made it into the deck. So what I would usually start doing is anything that I think is good, I would put on the spreadsheet. So Borrowed Hostility, yeah, it's got optionality, but +3 for 1, I mean, easy include. Brute Strength, it does cost 2. Oh, by the way, I forgot to sort by converted mana cost. Whoops. There we go, because, the cheaper the spell, the better. I mean, that's just obvious. Let's get the highlight going. Come on. God, Internet Explorer sucks, but I'm using it because Firefox has a boatload of personal information in it that I didn't want to show on camera by accident. So, Kindled Fury, I mean, look at this. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike till end of turn. That is so much worse than Borrowed Hostility. I didn't even bother putting it on the spreadsheet. Otherworldly Outburst was interesting because it gets +1/+0, and then if it dies, you put a 3/2 out, but, so what? I mean, that doesn't really benefit me. It just wasn't good enough because I wanted to stack it up with prowess and just get as high as possible. Now you look at Rush of Adrenaline, +2/+1 and trample for 1. I mean, automatic include Titan Strength +3/+1 and a free scry. Absolutely. Then Brute Strength, and honestly, that was about it. I mean, I got to the end and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spells. Wow. And then Glint is complete garbage. Target creature you control gets +0/+3 and gains hexproof, so it'll save it. With prowess you'll get +1 attack, but that's it. So that was automatically don't even bother putting it on the spreadsheet bad. So Brute Strength made it. Sure Strike did not though, because it gets +3/+0 and First Strike for 2, and that's obviously worse than +3/+1 and Trample. But it's also worse than Borrowed Hostility. It's pretty much worse than everything on the list, and what it really needed for 2 was Trample. I found that to be the magic rule for this. If it had above a 1 cost, it had to grant Trample or it wasn't good enough, because, okay, they blocked it, now I can cast this and kill them, so what? None of the damage goes through. And then the one exception was Uncaged Fury, and this, of course, was the whole backbone of the deck, because prowess isn't good enough to get to 20 on its own. You need to double it. So target creature gets +1/+1, and then also +1/+1 from prowess, and gains double strike. So for 3 it's insane, but it's only single red. The other 2 can be blue. That's pretty good. So I put basically the vast majority of these on the list. I also put Sure Strike just in case, because it was, it's +3 for 2. At the moment, it was good enough. You could always eliminate it later. So don't try to make the decision on this site. Try to make it on the spreadsheet. So let's jump back over there. So what we have here is the full list of possibilities. Now, as you can see, it went a little bit past what I was initially thinking, and that's because I thought bouncing back to hand might be good enough. Also, I thought sorceries might be good enough. Both of those as a whole concept were eliminated later. And then the first one is expedite. I just knew of that card. Now, it doesn't give plus anything. It literally just, for 1 red, grants haste, and then you draw a card. So for 1 red, you cast a spell, you get prowess, you might be able to swing with Mage Ring Bully or one of the other non-haste creatures, and then you get to draw a card and replace it. So you might be able to cast that card, or almost as importantly, it could be a land, and then you might be able to play that, because then you'll have more land or more mana available the next turn. So that was thrown in there just because, you know, it's kind of like the modern version of this deck where it's just cantrips. They just sit there and replace themselves over and over and over and over and over, and you just drive up the cost or the spell count. Except this one uses prowess instead of like Storm, for example. Infectious Bloodlust, I don't remember what that one does. Oh yeah, it draws a card, but wait. I don't know what it does, honestly. I put that it's an enchantment, so obviously that doesn't work with Mercurial, so I kicked it out. +2/+1. Oh, it replaces itself with one from your deck or from the graveyard or something. It's that obnoxious card. It also grants haste. Apparently I took really crappy notes, but didn't make the final cut because it wouldn't trigger all versions of prowess, I guess you could say. Borrowed Hostility did, though. Oh my god. I mean, escalate 3 and then +3 or first strike? Yeah, let's put 4 of those in. And Expedite I had to shrink to 3, actually. I think this is wrong, though, because the double strike card was also 4, so I know that this isn't the final version, but it's really close. Rush of Adrenaline, I think I cut down to 3 and then went up to 4 on double strike because it was way more important. Don't quite remember. Maybe it was Brute Strength that went down to 2. I'm pretty sure there's only 2 of that in the deck, too, because it just wasn't quite good enough. But the numbers you can tweak later, even in playtesting. But you could see Otherworldly Outburst. I just put it on there, didn't even bother to put the cost or the number because I kind of eliminated it in my head like right away. Distemper of Blood was interesting, though. It's a sorcery that grants +2/+2 and trample for 2. And one of the costs is generic and the other one is red. So that was the closest I got, but I figured, okay, trample, you know, I can't ambush somebody with it, but it's trample. It just wasn't quite good enough, not compared to Rush of Adrenaline for 1 as an instant, which is almost the exact same card. Uncaged Fury, like I said, you know, double strike, +1/+1, it's really +2/+2 from prowess, and it affects creatures that I'm not targeting with prowess. I mean, come on. Contingency Plan, I mean, if it's a blue deck, you better put Contingency Plan on the list. That's basically like Scry 5, but then the cards you don't want, you put them in the graveyard. That's pretty important. That if you're playing blue, you should always consider that. You could see about how long I considered that, because am I really going to fix my next turn, then swing with my creatures when they're not even that big because it's only single prowess? Probably not. Then we got Clutch of Kern's Dragunder and Compelling Deterrence, which are 3 bounce back to hand cards. It was supposed to have a dual purpose, and this is actually kind of clever. If they did something, they blocked all my creatures, they swung all out, and I had to block whatever, I could bounce my own creatures back to hand, or just one of them, and then the one remaining gets a prowess bonus. So it backfires massively on the opponent. The deck was way slower and less likely to win overall. I mean, you guys are probably thinking, wow, that sounds like a great idea. No, it didn't work. It was too slow. I mean, I can kill somebody on turn 4 with the deck as it sits. So, you know, why sit there and mess around with a bunch of, oh, I'm going to bounce this back to hand and counter this, and, oh, let's cast Dispel, and, you know, stuff like that, when you could just kill them and win the game. You know, this deck is a speed deck. That's what it does. So, ended up with 0 of those. You know, just because, I mean, there just wasn't enough room for consistent boost. I mean, you'd maybe get 1 boost spell per game. I mean, it was like that bad. And so, you know, bouncing back to hand, it's great, but I really wanted to just, you know, drop 20 damage on them in 1 turn. So the final numbers, which, like I said, are not final, were 3, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3. And I obviously started with 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and then right over here, these numbers, this is total creatures, which is 17, which is really low, and then total spells is 21, and then total land is actually 22. It's pretty obvious at this point how to search for land. You just set it on standard and then search for land. There's no way to do it by color that I know of. And plus, I mean, if you build enough decks, you're going to have them memorized. So the numbers that I came up with as far as, hypergeometric distribution, probability of drawing the card, its density in the deck, all that, I came up with 5 islands, 10 mountains. So I didn't just make that up. A lot of math went into that, and that's covered in the other videos. Then obviously Shiv and Reef, it doesn't come in tapped fixer land. I mean, of course. And then Wandering Fumarole ended up with just 3 because when there was 4, believe it or not, it was mathematically a lot slower. You were so much more likely to pull 1 more on like a late turn, and if you pull it on a late turn, that might have been like the mana that you needed to win the game. So it's almost always the 5th mana. And I'm not saying, I mean, like you'd always pull Wandering Fumarole on your, that'd be like 7th turn on average. But it would be like, oh, I dropped it in on my 5th, and now I can cast Double Strike and then 1 boost that costs 1. Oops, that's not enough to be lethal. Whereas if you were to drop in a mountain, okay, we got Spell, Double Strike, 28 damage, goodbye. Then Highland Lake didn't end up, making the cut. It's literally just a 2-color comes in tapped, and that's so much worse than Fumarole and infinitely worse than Shiv and Reef. And then I did think about Looming Spire. That's one of those old school lands. When it enters the battlefield, it enters tapped, but it gives a creature +1/+1 in first strike. I thought, well, that's kind of cool, but I still can't do it in the middle of combat, and it still comes in tapped. So it's like I'm playing a land and automatically getting a spell. So do I really need the land? But all of my single cost spells were better than +1/+1 and first strike. So if it was like +2/+0 without first strike, yeah, I would absolutely do it. But it didn't make the final cut. And 22 lands was the proper amount given the mana cost. And you might be thinking, well, there's a mana cost average of 1.368. It like almost nothing in the deck. Actually, only 1 card costs above 3, and then 2 creatures, which it turns out is actually 7 total cards. Why would I possibly want 22 instead of 21? Well, this is why when the pros who don't know what the hell they're talking about, when they say, well, look at your average mana cost, look at your curve, as they call it, and determine your lands based on that. No, I need 1 land every single turn to turn 4 or I'm going to lose the game. So if anything, it should have 23 total land, but I couldn't quite fit that in. If I dropped 1 more boost, it was too weak, and if I drop 1 more creature, well, there's only 17 creatures, and you really want to win. You can't win without 2 creatures on the field unless you pull like the ideal double strike combo. And with 2 on the field, they might remove 1, so 3 is the ideal number, and drawing 3 at 17 is hard enough, but having 3 creatures sitting on the field without enough boost spells is why there's 21 boost spells. So that's super detrimental because you can't do anything other than get hit. So this deck would really benefit from being like 65 cards, except obviously it wouldn't. It doesn't work that way. You can't just make it bigger and not have consequences. I would have loved to make it like 1 more creature, 1 more boost, and that, or like two more creatures, 1 more boost, and then 1 more land. But then all I did was scale the whole thing up almost evenly, and it didn't really do anything. So definitely don't do that. I'm going to make a video in the future about why going to 61 is acceptable in some cases. I'm sure that'll be popular, but it is correct, and the math is correct. So right now we've got a full deck. Total cards in deck 60. So normally, if this wasn't quite as, pristine as it is right now with 3/4, 3/4, 3/4 all balanced, I'd be at like 78 or 72 or 68 or something like that. And then I would start reducing things. So like I said, I always start with 4/4, 4/4, 4 across the board, and then I cut down based on what's more important. Now, obviously, a spell that replaces itself and draws is important, so that went, above 2 at least. And then, just the most powerful. I mean, 3 attack for 1 mana. Of course I'm putting in 4. And then, it's +3/+1 in trample, but it costs 2, so it's really hard to win on turn 4 with a 2 cost as opposed to 1 cost, because it costs double, and it isn't twice as good as a 1 cost spell. Now, obviously it's in the deck because it's 1 card. I didn't have to draw 2 1-cost cards, so there is value there, but I did cut it down to 3. And I believe in the final deck list it's actually 2. And then on Cage Fury absolutely is 4. Just for my reference in the future, I'm going to fix this. There we go. And then, +3/+1 and Scry for 1. I mean, that's a guaranteed 4. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell what the best spells are, but these are boost spells. I mean, it's comparing apples to apples about as close as you can get. I mean, you're going trample versus Scry versus draw, but I mean, it's really just the amount of damage at the end of the day. So that's basically how I do it. And then sideboard notes are on the bottom, like displacement wave. I can cast it for 0 to nuke all tokens. Most people didn't know that. Or I could have X as 0, and then it wouldn't bounce any of my creatures back. I ended up just not building a sideboard because, as you can see, if you pull 8 of these cards, you are down to so few boost spells you cannot possibly win the game. Like, you can stop them from doing whatever they're doing with your sideboard, but you won't win the game. So, no sideboard. I mean, that's basically what it was. Although in this case, what you should do is have a sideboard of more Majoring Bullies, more Abbot of Carol Keeps, even though the final version had 4, by the way. Not sure what I cut, though. And then, you might reduce Niblis and reduce Mercurial if they have a really fast deck. So really, it would just be like a balancing sideboard. You guys hopefully saw my video about concept versus balanced sideboards. If they were playing like a really fast, really effective, just board dominating deck where if I let them get to turn 8 or 9, I pretty much lost, I would dump off the Mercurial and the Niblis. Or if they're playing tokens. I mean, Niblis of Frost is completely worthless if they're playing tokens. I would just dump them both and then put in like Majoring Bully, Abbot, some of the cheaper stuff where the concept is still intact, but I'm so much faster and so much more just in your face board presence on turn 3 and 4 that it works. I would probably even put in one of the other creatures that's not even in the deck. Probably not Aberrant Researcher. I still think he didn't work. Maybe Niblis of Dusk because it's a 2/1 flying spirit with prowess. I thought that was a pretty close second. He did cost 3 though, so it wouldn't be ideal, and that's why I wrote down all the costs. Tattered Hunter, I mean, I don't remember why he was good. I don't remember if he had prowess. Hey, here's a lesson. Take better notes so you don't have to look up the creature. Like Lightning Berserker, you could pump it just straight up. So if you were short 4 damage on the lethal swing, you could just feed mana directly in to make it bigger. It also had dash. I mean, that's an antique right there. Maybe Deranged Whelp. I don't know. I mean, there weren't that many good prowess cards. I mean, this deck literally almost did not happen because prowess was getting a little bit too expensive. It was not quite there. I mean, I basically had to include all of the prowess creatures that existed, and that's it. Those were my choices. So if it turned out that we'll say only 70 or 80% of the creatures had prowess and the rest were just fillers, and I still called it a prowess deck, it wouldn't work, and I would just give up on the deck. So at that point, you should, say, wow, there's, total of 17 creatures. Let's say it was 12, and we're going 4-4-4, and there's only 3 creatures with prowess. You better come up with something because your deck just fell apart. The whole idea doesn't work. The cards just aren't there. So either build it in Modern, which that's a bit of a jump, or just give up on it. Or find something creative to do, like bounce back to hand, or I don't know, just replace it with all flyers so you can swing every turn, or Death Touchers to stall, or something like that. Something creative. And you can always play with it on Xmage for free. Just build it. You don't have to go build it in person and find a human and then test it with 10 games in a row because that's tedious. But you can jump on Xmage, which is what I'm playing usually in the background of all my videos. And just play against the computer. Just see if the deck works at all. You're not worried about, does this deck beat another person? Does it beat a top tier deck? Does it beat a human? It's, does it work at all? Like, I'm just worried about one-sided. And some people will just play against an invisible opponent that's not doing anything. The computer's AI in Xmage is pretty close to that. It's not brilliant. And plus, I have testing ones where it's just like a 1-2-3-4 life gain stall defense deck. And if I can get past that, it's a good deck. Unless that's not what I'm trying to do. If it's a mill deck, I really don't care. But I don't build those. So hopefully that tells you the whole process pretty well. I don't really know of a good way to get you guys this spreadsheet, especially since I didn't make it in Google Docs and I don't feel like remaking it, but you could do it on paper. I mean, it's so not a big deal. Like the statistics, like the land percentage and the average mana cost are interesting, but you could really do a simple version of this where you just basically say, hey, I'm gonna, have creatures, not creatures, total the number. If you're not familiar, just do equals sum and then parenthesis and then grab some stuff and then parenthesis, enter. There you go. there's the number. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just sum. I mean, there's a little bit of multiplication in there, but that's it. So you just look up the basic commands. And I'm actually using LibreOffice, not Excel. Excel is expensive. LibreOffice is free. that's about all I have to say about that. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm sure I missed something in here because there's really a lot that goes into deck building, but the basic process, as you can see, was just dump everything that you think is a candidate, slowly kind of whittle it down until you're at 60, and give up if it doesn't work. So 3 steps, easy. And I will see you guys next video.